An approach to justice. The idea of justice, Amartya. About 2.5 months before the storming of the Bastille in Paris, which was effectively the beginning of French Revolution, the political philosopher and orator Edmund Burke said in Parliament of London, an event has happened upon which it is difficult to speak and impossible to be silent. This was on 5th May 1779. Burke's speech had nothing much to do with the developing storm in France. The occasion, rather, was the impeachment of Warren Hastings, who was then commanding the British East India Company, which was setting up British rule in India, beginning with the company's victory in the Battle of Plassey on 23 June 1757. In impeaching Warren Hastings, Burke invoked the eternal laws of justice, which Burke claimed Hastings had violated. The impossibility of remaining silent on a subject is an observation that can be made about many cases of patent injustice that move us to rage in a way that is hard for our language to capture. Yet any analysis of injustice would also demand clear articulation and reasoned scrutiny. Burke did not, in fact, give much evidence of being lost for words. He spoke eloquently not on one misdeed of Hastings, but on a great many, and proceeded from there to present simultaneously a number of separate and quite distinct reasons for the need to indict Warren Hastings and the nature of the emerging British rule in India. No argument is separated out here as the reason for impeaching Warren Hastings or as an isolated knockout punch. Instead, Burke presents a collection of distinct reasons for impeaching him. Later on his work, I will examine the procedure of what can be called plural grounding, that is, of using of a number of different lines of condemnation without seeking an agreement on their relative merits. The underlying issue is whether we have to agree on one specific line of censure for a reasoned consensus on the diagnosis of an injustice that calls for urgent rectification. What is important to note here, as central to the idea of justice, is that we can have a strong sense of injustice on many different grounds, yet not agree on one particular ground as being the dominant reason for diagnosis of injustice. Perhaps a more immediate and more contemporary illustration of this general point about the congruent implications can be given by considering a recent event involving the decision of US government to launch a military invasion of Iraq in 2003. There are diverse ways of judging decisions of this kind, but the point to be considered here is that it is possible that a number of distinct and divergent arguments the realm of life. We are the most complicated things that we know about in the entire universe. This is because on the cosmic scale of things, we are middle-sized. As we have seen, small objects are like atoms are composed of few simple entities, obeying a few simple laws. As we shall see in the next chapter, the entire universe is so big that the subtleties of even objects as large as stars can be ignored and the whole cosmos can be treated as a single object made up of reasonably smooth distribution of mass energy. Again, obeying a few very simple laws, but on scales where atoms are able to join together to make molecules. Although the laws are still very simple, the number of compounds possible, the number of different ways in which atoms can join together to make molecules is so great that a huge variety of different things with complicated structures can exist and interact with one another in subtle ways. Life as we know it is a manifestation of this ability for atoms to form a complex variety of large molecules. This complexity starts on the next scale up from atoms with simple molecules such as water and carbon dioxide. It ends where molecules begin to be crushed out of existence by gravity. Once we are dealing with the interiors of objects the size of large planets, and even atoms are entirely stripped of their electrons by the time we are dealing with objects the size of stars. The exact size of a lump of matter needed to destroy the complexity on which life as we know it depends is determined by the different strengths of the electromagnetic and gravitational forces. The electricity forces that holds molecules together are 10 to the power 36 times stronger than the gravitational forces that try to crush molecules out of existence in the lump of matter. When atoms are together in a lump of matter, there is no overall electric charge because each atom is electrically neutral. In each atom is essentially on its own when it comes to withstanding gravity without the strength of QED. But the strength of the inward gravitational force on each atom is the lump of matter increases with the addition of every extra atom that is contributed to the lump. The amount of mass in a sphere with a certain density is proportional to cube of the radius for constant density. But the strength of the gravitational force falls off in accordance with the inverse square law. So, in terms of the radius of the lump of matter, gravity at the surface gains on electric force in accordance with 2/3 power. This means since 36 is 2/3 of 54, that when 10 to the power